I'm Blake.
Hi, I'm Garrett.
Hi, I'm Kate.
I'm Sarah.
Hi, I'm Bridget. And I'm Ronnie.
And we are a part of the Knott's 2020 Most Influential Weddings.
It's been 5 years since marriage equality became the law of the land. We deserve to celebrate our many victories. We're taking the time to talk to some of my friends to talk about their journey to Pride. Can't wait to gay it up. I love having other gay people to talk to. When did both of you first become aware of your identity as a queer or LGBTQ plus person?
The earliest that I remember having an inkling of something different was I was in second grade. We were playing hide and seek. One of my friends was hiding in a place with me and he ran off. And I remember immediately thinking oh, he's kind of cute. But then immediately feeling oh, I shouldn't be thinking that.
I became aware that I wasn't a part of the normal things that all my friends were feeling, I would say pretty early on when I was 8, but then I was a religious person. So I was nah, you can't do that. And then I really came out and realized it when I was 20.
When I realized that I was gay, I wasn't excited at all. I actually pretty much threw up in the toilet because I was so nervous in high school.
When I was a little kid, I always wanted a Barbie and a G.I. Joe. And I would play with them together. And my dad would get pissed because I had a Barbie. And then my grandma would yell at him and just say, no, he's well balanced. So I guess that might be the first inkling of that when I was a kid.
Until then, I hadn't dated anybody, nothing, because I was still trying to figure out who I was. But once I did come out, I came out of my shell in terms of my personality and everything. It wasn't just I was free to just love who I wanted, but it was me being free to be me.
So what was your coming out journey like after you kind of had these realizations about your identity or had sort of identified those things within yourself? Were there any roadblocks to your senses of self or self-acceptance as you kind of went through coming out?
Growing up in a super religious atmosphere, it's not ideal. So that was definitely a huge roadblock just because I feel if I had grown up in a more accepting place or a place where I was more exposed to people who were out, I would have realized a lot sooner or let myself realize a lot sooner. And I think because where I grew up, I was so filled with internalized homophobia that it was such a blinder for me. But then when I finally realized it, I was a little bit older, obviously 20. And I just knew because I had a boyfriend at the time and it was my only boyfriend I've ever had. And I was just I can't live like that anymore, so unfulfilled and so unhappy and so just below, it was just the quality of life that I was settling for that I could have lived now. I look back and I'm whoa, that was not, I just can't believe I almost settled for that.
Coming out for me was everything I hoped it would be, to be honest with you. Of course, when you are in this world, you prepare for the worst so that when it happens, you're you can take that punch, but you're secretly hoping it goes super well. I told my mom, I was Mommy, I got something to tell you. And then my mom's what? So immediately tears, which I find is funny. And finally I told her, that I was gay, and she was and she cries because she said, how long have you known this? It must have been so painful for you to hold that in for so long. And so we finally just had a really wonderful conversation, and she said, I love you no matter what, you're my kid.
When I told my mom, I sat her down, I did the big teen thing where it's I have to tell you something. And I told her, and then she was yeah, I know. And I was what do you mean? And she goes, yeah, I'm your mom. Of course I know. Do you want to go to the movie still or what? And
that's a nice reaction.
I am estranged from my brother. He cried when I came out, and then we haven't spoken in a few years. But, I've made peace with that. And I think everyone's level of acceptance of other people's lives is often a reflection of their own self-worth and self-respect. So if someone has a problem with who I am, then I don't really care if they want to be in my life.
For me, I think my biggest roadblock was owning the fact that I was gay. It took me years to just be hey, I'm gay. Or when someone was oh, do you have a boyfriend? And I didn't, I had a girlfriend. I'd always just be no, or sometimes I would say yes.
So I waited a couple months to tell them, and I wanted to make sure I knew what I was. And to be honest, I still didn't. But my friend told me once when I was having that kind of who am I thing, they were you know what, you don't have to be anything else but Ronnie's girlfriend.
Right.
And I was oh.
How do you practice self-love and self-care from a queer perspective?
I think for me, for me, my experience is intersectional.
Yeah.
Where it's like, I am a gay Black woman who is more masculine presenting. So when I, like you were saying, when I step into the world, it's like boom, boom, boom that I'm presenting. And, you know, at any turn, any one of those things could be detrimental to my safety. So, but for me, having Bridget being so much of an advocate, not only for our relationship, but for, you know, my Blackness, and the things that I'm struggling with, you know, just like in the last couple of days, we've seen so much stuff happening to the Black community, and it's painful and it's hurtful. But to have someone like Bridget, who I can truly vent to and tell my frustrations, I think that she is a part of my self-care in a huge way.
Do you have any advice or maybe words of encouragement for someone who might be struggling with fostering that sense of pride or that sense of self-love or celebration as they're kind of navigating their own journey?
You come out every single time you meet someone new. Like, and that's hard for some people. So even if it just means acknowledging it yourself and like making yourself happy, knowing that you are gay or you are queer or whatever it is, like baby steps to owning it and being confident in who you are is, I think, I mean, it took me almost a decade, but it helped.
Find your family, find friends that are going to be family, because unfortunately, people are born into families that are ignorant, and that is detrimental to mental health. That is detrimental to people knowing fully who they are. I just would encourage people to find support groups like that and then build your own family, your own unit. I think that's vital.
Just because you can't be out doesn't mean that you can't be proud. My advice usually is, you know, just make sure that you're in a safe place where if you are to come out, you know, there's not going to be, if there is a lot of negative backlash, you can still live your life and be, you know, in somewhat of a sense of normalcy. Once you're comfortable with yourself, you can go out and, you know, mingle with your community and find commonalities in other people.
We have unlimited resources at our fingertips now, and there are so many ways you can find communities full of people that look like you, experience things like you, and someone will be like, hey, it's because this is happening outside of you, and they're telling you that you should feel that way. And the liberation and empowerment you feel when you're, first of all, given a break, because you realize that sometimes how you feel isn't your fault. It's not the way you want to be, it's just how the world has taught you to feel.
So I think our generation is at that weird time where like some people are amazing and we're so grateful to have like great allies, and then you still have like 50% of the people who have an old school mindset or don't realize how offensive they're being.
Right.
And it comes from ignorance. Like they don't think that they're being offensive, but they just don't care to learn about how offensive they're being.
Right.
I think it's obviously important to ask queer people, you know, how we can, you know, take care of ourselves and what we're doing to enrich our experience. But it also should be noted that it's the responsibility of parents to simply love their child. Period, point blank. If you have a child, love them. No matter what, it's your responsibility. It is your responsibility to be your child's biggest advocate. It will save lives. I'm not exaggerating there. It will 100% save lives. We see the statistics. So I think that, you know, just love people. That's all we're asking, no matter what. So
thank you so much for tuning in. Remember, no matter where you're at in your journey, you are valid, you are special, and we are with you. You know, I'm waving my rainbow flag high for you, boo. Like this video and subscribe to our channel for our next installment in this Pride series, in which we'll be talking to our couples about how they met, relationship health, and their Pride celebrations. Cheers, y'all!